Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Jake.
How was your holiday? Amazing, I'm assuming, right? Like
Oh my God.
family. Yeah.
So cool. So
It,
fun.
it's kind of, which is interesting, right? I was thinking about this, like that is holidays are kind of how we prioritize our time. Like it's interesting as we spend time, we're like, you know what? This is where I'm going to give all of my attention to. Like nothing else actually matters. And like with Hamilton being there, it's like everything else just goes away. And you're like, you want to do this weird thing? Let's do this weird thing because that's actually like the most important thing for me. And it was awesome.
100%.
We played a lot of games and we talked a lot of. He's apparently a very passionate football kid all of a sudden, and I know that comes from all of his buddies. But like, there is no conversation that doesn't somehow go back to like, who's your third favorite wide receiver? I'm like, dude, you are a savant with this stuff. So
That's
it's
awesome.
kind of awesome. So when we talk about what your time is worth, that was sort of this great reminder to me of like, I have to prioritize the things that are the most valuable to me. And in this case, family and things like that. But we do this all the time at work. And that's really, I think, where, when you and I talked about this, really this piece fits in, right? Like I consistently focus on activities that earn the highest hourly rate. And honestly, I don't want it to be so pragmatic that we're only talking about numbers. I want to include things like, I actually like this. I'm like, I am cool with that idea, right? Like, if somebody's really just loves doing flyers or whatever, I don't even care what it is. I don't want them to drop that from their plate, but I want them to know what they give to one, they take from another, right? By doing this, something else is losing time. And I think that's really where this idea goes. And I know all of these content pieces for all of you watching this before January 1st. If you're like Jen, you probably get this done. If you're like Jake, you're probably watching this on Monday night or Tuesday morning on your way to the office. And also that's okay. Like I don't care where those things fall. I just want you to take advantage of how you're wired. All of these topics you'll notice overlap a whole lot. And that's really why that sort of like coaching wheel really is sort of a Venn diagram with some overlap pieces. This touches on some of the stuff we've talked about, your calendar and all of that. And I really think after this session, you'll have a pretty clear picture of what everything really looks like in terms of managing your time, your energy, and all of those things. So, Jen, good to see you as always. Jump in when you've got some thoughts. I know that, you're honestly probably a master at this because you manage your time very efficiently. And please always know that I always appreciate you managing your time and mine behind the scenes. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So all of this, and I'm the first to say, I'm a coaching and training DJ, which really just means I don't write my own stuff. I just remix like everybody else's stuff. So, this book by Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, really is the core of what we're going to talk about today. I highly encourage you to get the book, download it, read that through. Every leadership and business coach that I've had relationships with, worked with, or interacted with refers back to this book as sort of the cornerstone to everything, right? You can be a great leader personality wise, but if you can't manage your time and those resources, you just don't have time to do it. And Jen, and I think when I say this, we probably take as much from these lessons as everybody else does, right? Like, I mean, I don't know, as I go through this, I'm like, Jake, maybe that is not the best use of your time. Do you have those thoughts sometimes too, Jen?
Oh, 100%. As I was creating this lesson and the lesson for the meeting on Tuesday, I was thinking about, okay, what things do I do that I need to spend less time on because they are not as important? It's silly to spend a ton of time on something that I can outsource to AI and ask AI to create for me or something like that. Or, if I had an assistant.
Yep.
I don't, but if I did. But going back to this book and talking about reading it, I would suggest Jay Panis does an excellent job. Every month he does a different book study.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this would be an awesome addition to his monthly book study.
I think that would be a great idea. And on that, we're going to build some lessons on the book. And what I've done is I've found 2 downloads for us. One is the Buy Back Your Time official workbook, which is very leadership focused. And that's not to say it's not useful for all of us, but it is really geared towards, my leadership coaching friends are like, this is really geared towards someone who is managing a full team, right? And not that there aren't some great ideas there, but there's also this sort of third party book, Exercises for Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. I think it's a little more applicable to the average independent business owner, one agent, maybe a team of a couple of people. So I've included both those workbooks, and I want you to take a look at those, which is really part of this lesson. So if you have time, this would be the book that I would put at the top of your list for the new year to really guide some principles. If not, Jen and I are going to give you some great cliff notes about this book, because I think the principle of this, and as I go into the new year, starting to make some resolutions, Jen, I don't know if you have any resolutions, but I just have to get more efficient with my time. And that's the gift that I get by being busy, is I have to be more efficient. Jen, do you have any thoughts on that, on New Year's resolutions and managing your time outside of that? You're new to the job. You're in a new year, so you get to be fresh and start.
I do. I am not a big New Year's resolution person. Unfortunately, I make big resolutions, but I'm not very good at following through with them.
Yeah.
But I am pretty organized with my time. And I do find myself sometimes going down rabbit holes, and I have to stop myself. So just being cognizant of that and making sure that as I'm doing all of the tasks that I do, that they are worthy of the amount of time I'm spending on them.
That's a great way to say it, right? Does this deserve my time? Not everyone gets the gift of our time, right? Like not everything gets the gift of our time. So big core principle here. And I think this is the reframe that I appreciate the most about this book. You're not hiring to grow your business, right? Most of us think that, like, I'm just going to throw money at this and solve a problem. The interesting mindset shift that really resonates with me, and hopefully you, is you're hiring to buy back your own time. You're not throwing money at a problem to solve the problem. You're actually trying to gain back your own time. Now, I firmly believe that as an entrepreneur of a real estate business, even if there's one employee and that employee is you, we need to spend 51% of our time focused on the activities that generate the highest income for us. And that's ideal, right? 49% means that we're not leading the business, we're working in the business, right? 51% puts us on the working on the business side. I have great respect for wherever you are in your business. I just need you to know where you are in your business. That's the big piece. And I think when we talk about buying back our time, that becomes crucial. And this graph sort of shows it, right? I've got a pain point. Let's take a look at the problem. Let's move that problem to somebody else's page, right? Let's fill that position and then move forward. And what's awesome is then you just get a new pain point. You've heard me say the whole time, my job is to give you higher quality problems. You do one loop, now you got a new problem over here. You do another loop, now you got a higher quality problem. And that's really the idea of being an entrepreneur in this space. So here's the thing. Here's the core principle of this. And I'm going to spend a couple minutes just talking about this. Dan talks about this buyback rate formula. And you can see the formula here, right? Here's my income, right? Whether it's gross commission earned, which basically for agents, that just means all the checks you get from us, all the commission and everything you get. What does that number look like? What is that number? And maybe you've got a couple of other side hustles and all the things. What are all those numbers? How much is that amount over the course of a year before taxes, right? You're going to divide that by the number of hours you work. Now, this book is geared towards a more traditional employee or an entrepreneur, using the mindset of 2,000 hours is sort of the norm. I'm sure every single agent listening to this call, Jen, is going to be like, well, Jake, I work way more than that. Cool. Maybe. Right? The problem is the higher you make that number, 3,000 or 4,000 means the lower your hourly rate is, right? All of a sudden you go from $50 an hour to $20 an hour or $12. I don't care what the number is. I just need us to know what it is. So whatever your income is, divided by 2,000. And then here's this thing at the end. He divides it by 4. And I want to be very clear on why this is so important. If we don't divide that number by 4, and let's say my buyback rate is $100 before we divide by 4, then the idea is any task that's under $100, I should pay someone to do, which makes sense. But then there's really no return on that $100. I'm giving $100 to somebody else to do something that cost me roughly $100 to do. There's really no leverage behind it. So Dan has his principle of this is we divide it by 4 because we want a return on our investment. And he talks about, 3 times the return on investment. So let's say my $100 an hour of my buyback rate, I divide that by 4, so I get $25. So any task that's under that, let's say a $20 task of doing flyers or a $20 task of entering people in your database. If I pay somebody $20 for that, I am actually earning return on my investment $80 back for that task, right? Paying somebody $20 takes that off of my plate. The difference between those two is actually my return on investment. So I'm actually making money by doing that. Jen, does that, what did I miss in that explanation? Is there anything I can clarify for that?
I think that's a great explanation. I just want to add where the 2000 comes from. So like you said, it's a more traditional work environment. So that's averaging that you would work 50 weeks out of a 52-week year, and that you would work 40 hours a week. So that kind of gives you an idea. If you work more or less than 40 hours a week, you're generally off about 10 days out of the year. And that's where that 2000 comes from.
That's awesome. And again, we will have some exercises where if you're like, I have no idea how much I work, it's all the time, Jake. Well, that's kind of its own problem, which I think we're going to address because we do want to have some boundaries. So this buyback rate, take a look at your numbers, figure out what that is, divide by 4. That's now leverage. And that's the core of the buyback your time. It says, if it costs $100 to get something done, but I can pay $25 for that, now I'm leveraging my own time. I'm not just buying back my own time, I'm leveraging that time for me. So reach out to us if you have questions on that. I want that number in a good way to haunt us, because when we engage in a task, I want you to say, should I actually be doing this task? Is there someone else that could be doing this task for me? And here's some time assassins I like to talk about. I like to talk about these because the truth is we're guilty of all of these ourselves at any given time, no matter how we're wired. And the piece here is they're not always negative. They can be predators, right? Sometimes stalling, right? The staller. You sabotage your own success by hesitating on big decisions. Now, I think we all know that there's a time and a place where we need to stall on decisions. But when that becomes a predator, now it's distracting from the piece, right? The speed demon, you make rapid decisions, hire the quickest, cheapest, you just move forward, and then you find yourself in the same position, right? The supervisor, I'm just going to micromanage everything. I'm just going to keep my thumb on everything. The saver, I've got all the leverage in the world. I just don't use the leverage to solve any problems. I don't use the money to buy back my time. I have all the money, right? And the self-medicator, I mean, this is probably more common in real estate than we realize, but we turn to other vices to reward ourselves when we have success, and then we sort of fall into a weird spiral. And I talk about these things because, truth be told, I've hit all 5 of those at any given time. I probably hit all 5 of those, Jen, in the space of one day. I mean, you see this, right? You're like, Jake, I see you in this phase. I'd like you to be in this phase a little bit. It's really, to me, about awareness of, am I repeating a pattern? Am I doing a thing that in the past has led to another poor choice or something like that? Jen, thoughts on this? I mean, you work with kids, you work with adults, you work with a whole slew of these individuals, myself included. What do you think?
Well, I'm included in that too, because I tend to be the speed demon. I want to get something done. It's on my list. I need to get it done. And sometimes when you're making important decisions, or you really need to think through something before you implement it, that speediness is a detriment. But I think the big thing for realtors is the saver. We're not suggesting, I want the big takeaway from this is that we're not suggesting you hire an assistant necessarily. That's not the fix for buying back your time. And a lot of people want to save their money and that, well, it's easier if I just do it than if I hire somebody to do it. But there are some tasks that you can hire out. I know my parents hired my niece to stuff envelopes
Yeah.
or to put mailing labels on things, It's
Yeah.
kind of like babysitter type money. You don't have to pay a fortune to have
Yeah.
those types of things done.
Yeah. And I think, for some of us with a slightly more control impulse in our lives and in our business, I see you. I do see you. Is that becoming problematic for you? And again, I say it this way: what you give to one, you take from another. So, stuffing and folding your own envelopes, what is that taking time away from, right? It's probably maybe a listing presentation, probably marketing, but your family, like any number of those things. Brian Buffini says, your business is the goose that lays the golden egg. Your business gives you the exponential opportunity to reinvest in your business to grow that business. Most regular business people that get a salary don't have that leverage to do it in the same way. And I think that's an important piece for us. So again, as we go through some of these lessons, start to just think a little bit. Am I being this person? Is it right for the moment? And how do I get out of that? What's the next step for that? Trade levels, right? We talked about this in the core of, master your craft in the very first presentation. We have to float between all of these as the owner of a real estate business. The employee, I'm time for money, right? Most of us that those are that get a salary, like I trade my time for money. That's just what this piece looks like. And when you're in the real estate business, that is what you're doing. I have to do certain things that are time for money transactions. Now, the entrepreneur side, you're using money for more time, right? Which is the principle of this buy back your time. What can I do with this money to transfer that money to someone who can take a task over for me to give me more time, right? The empire builder, which sort of big picture, which we'll definitely start to talk about, is this idea of money for more money. I can buy an investment property. I can take on things that can then create more income for me, right? That's, I think, the single best reason to have a real estate license is actually just because you get a discount on real estate, and owning real estate is a crucial piece of empire building or building. And if that's not your thing, that is okay. But I think along the way, some of those assets can help you sort of leverage that piece. And I want you to float between those roles, but really I'd like us to stay at that entrepreneur place as much as possible, right? I don't want to trade time for money because that is absolutely a fixed asset. We can always hire more people. So here's where we get into sort of analyzing what we are. And Jen, I love that you put together this resource. It's fantastic. Thank you. We've talked about this before, and we're going to revisit this. But in the book, they really focus on this idea of the drip matrix, right? Which is really delegation, replacement, investment, and production. The things that light you up and make you money, right? Those are that very top corner, right? Which the acronym doesn't quite work, drip in the order, but production's that upper right-hand corner. It's the magic spot of it lights you up and it makes you the money. It's where we want as entrepreneurs to spend our most time, but everything else on that chart drags us back, right? Delegation, little money drains your energy. Replacement, it makes money, but it drains my energy, right? That's a lot of what we do. Investment, yeah, there's some money there, but it really makes me happy, right? There's kind of a magic there, right? Like that's listing presentations and sort of cultivating the business and things like that, right? There's some money there. It's my purpose, right? Production, lots of money and lights you up, right? Hosting client parties, things like that. Like sometimes those are really the big leverage pieces. To talk about that, one of the exercises we'll do that you're going to do in sort of your office meeting is you're going to do this self-assessment, and Jen will talk about that a little bit later. It's just sort of this reminder that we're going to give you some actual things to say. Is this working? Jen, any thoughts on this before?
No, I think that's perfect. Yeah, and it's really important. I think as we talk about these things, some of us have a hard time thinking about what are things that I can take off my plate, or how can I leverage things that the company has to take time off of my plate. And that's really what we're focusing on in the lesson on Tuesday, or in the activity on Tuesday. So that was a great lead in.
Yeah, I mean, and I want everybody to have their own customized listing presentation if that has a benefit to them, right? Maybe right now you're like, well, the time, money, energy, and all of that to get to that place I just don't have that in my budget. Well, we have some resources that can absolutely help you do those things. And I think for us, especially new agents, here's the things that you should absolutely be relying on us to do. If it's on this list, you shouldn't be touching it until you get to a place to have a real reason why you need to sort of move that onto your plate and off of our plate. Time and energy audit. This is absolutely, you've heard me say the microwave exercise versus the crock pot exercise. Jen, I struggle with this. You probably already know why I struggle with this. Doing it. You're like, the point is like, I already have too much going on. I don't have time to do a time and energy audit, right? Like it's a chicken and egg concept. Mm-hmm. I can promise you this will be very enlightening if you even just do it for a day or two. It will show up your patterns pretty quickly. The idea here is you break your time down into 15-minute increments, right? Big surprise. You write down everything you do in a chunk of 15 minutes. Yeah, it doesn't have to be an exact science. You're like, Jake, I do 5 things at once. Well, that's kind of indicative of a bigger problem to begin with. Choose what you allot that 15 minutes to. This will start to talk about how we time block our day and schedule our day, right? You can see how this loops into a whole bunch of other pieces, right? So we're going to write down an activity. We're going to assign it a value. Does it take energy or give energy, right? That's a pretty simple way we're going to do this. And Jen has put together a handout for us that we're going to start in our office meeting so you guys can work on this for the next couple of weeks. And it's really just the idea of taking everything we do outside of what cost it is. But if I just say, let me audit my day, week, month, where am I actually spending our time? And here's the gift I'll give you. Jen, maybe that you're this way too. And I think we're both kind of wired this way. I feel like I know where I spend my time, but we're actually far harder on ourselves, I think, than we actually give ourselves credit. We tend to notice those little 15-minute increments where I'm down a rabbit hole or I'm scrolling or I'm doing whatever. And we actually forget about all the big stuff we do because it comes easy and it's natural and it's just what we're supposed to do. So to me, the benefit of this is to actually reward yourself for all the stuff that you're going to put in green that actually has a high dollar value. We need to be reminded of all the great things we do, not punished for the stuff that we don't always do. And I think, well, that's my spin because that's how I need to hear it for myself. So I can encourage myself to do this and you guys can hold me accountable. Jen, thoughts on this? You put together the piece. Great content. So
the one thing I really noticed on here in green was make coffee. Like, yes, that is for me.
Yeah,
I have to. I make coffee here in the office every morning, and I'm really funny about the way I do it. I start it, and I know it's going to take some time, so I do that first, and then I do some other things while it's making. But if I don't have that coffee, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and
I love that that's on here and it's in green.
Yeah, and I think to that point, like right with those of us with kids and responsibilities and stuff, it all goes on here. That's the thing; it all goes on here because, as I say, what you give to one, you take from another, and we need to know what all the things are because there is generally a solution for a lot of that. There's ways out of it. This helps us identify our patterns and habits, which are important. And sometimes, I'm speaking really directly into my own ear, sometimes those patterns and habits, although comfortable, need to be changed. Is that fair to say, Jen?
Oh, I totally agree. I know that I do some things. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is grab my cell phone and start scrolling. And then it's like a half an hour later and I'm going to be late for work.
Yeah.
And I need to stop that habit. But I think this would help me really look at what am I doing that is not worth my time?
Yep. I've said this a couple of times in the year 2026, and I've seen a lot of, weirdly enough, I've seen a lot of memes, which means I'm online, but the year 2026 is going to be the year of analog. And I am really fully convinced I'm not going to give up my cell phone, but I think the year 2026 for me is going to be much more intentional about person to person, face to face, real things. I miss the computer being in a room at a desk. When I wanted to go use the internet, it existed over there, and I'm dating myself and I don't care. There's things I don't need right now, and I let them distract me. And I think that's what I want to carry into the new year a little bit. So, Jen, bring us home for give us a tip, a tease, a little preview of what we're going to see in our office meetings. And thank you for doing all this stuff. It's amazing.
Absolutely. No problem. So what we're going to do in the office meeting, there are 3 handouts. If you go to the agent training Google Drive and go to Master Your Craft, this is lesson 4. You're going to find those 2 workbooks that Jake was talking about. So if you really want to dig deeper into this and you want to get the book and you want to do all the lessons with it, those are all there. It's very valuable. But I took a couple pieces out of it, and those things are what we're going to do in the office meeting on Tuesday. And part of that is this middle piece, which is the $10,000 to $10,000 zone mapping. And that's thinking about, kind of goes along with the audit, but it's more big picture. What are the tasks that I do in every transaction or in my business? What are the pieces that I do and where do they fall? And so you have to break it up into anybody can do it, to I'm the only one that can do it because I'm the expert in it.
I'm really the only one, not just like I feel like I'm the only one.
Right. I really am the only one that can create my personalized listing, packet. And so those are the things that you're going to look at. And then there are some kind of reflection questions that go along with it. Like, where am I spending most of my time? Where are the most things and which box are they? And then how can I rearrange that so more of my time is spent in the green zone instead of in the red zone? Then we're also going to look at, like we talked about before, kind of the tools that we have. Are you utilizing the tools that we have? And are there some tools on that list that you didn't even know we had and want more training on? And that would be great information for Jake and I. So you'll have an opportunity to kind of evaluate that and see how we can help you more, but then what really is available. And that is not a complete list. That is not a complete.
I was going to say that I looked through that. That's the highlights. And I love that you made a note, like, please send a copy of this to your broker at the end. Right. And really that just helps us, right? Help us help you, like, give us a sense of where you are with your business and all of those things. Where do we need to move time? If we see things that are like, this is just not important to any of us, then we move away from that and move towards other things as well. So
correct.
Jen, any last thoughts?
No, I'm really looking forward to this lesson on Tuesday and doing it myself as well. Not just
I know.
Preach it, but do it too.
That's such a Brian Buffini thing that I took from that. And I don't know that it made a lot of sense early on in my career and my business, but you're like, I have to do the things I talk about. I don't have to excel at them. I don't even have to be perfect. And I think you know this, I'm a relatively flawed human being. This is something for me that I need a lot of work on. And it's like, I'm alongside you guys working on this. Jen's alongside you guys working on this. I am absolutely not here to be the sage on the stage. I'd rather be in the trenches trying to figure this stuff out with you guys along the way. That's what I enjoy the most. It's actually more entertaining, right? Yeah. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Jen. Enjoy. I'm going to jump on a plane and fly to San Diego and fly back in 24 hours. So I'll keep you posted on that progress. But speaking of time management,
I don't know how you do that, but
thank you for everyone. This has been an awesome 4 series. I really think these pieces are going to start to come together, and it's all, now that we see the big picture, hopefully it all clicks. I highly encourage you to revisit some of the earlier sessions, maybe for a refresher. If you know somebody in another office that maybe works for another brokerage, let's find a way to get this stuff to them so they can work alongside, right? We firmly believe collectively rising tide lifts all ships. And I think that's what we're hoping to do in this industry. So thank you, Jen. You're amazing. I will see all of you very soon. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate you.